Well, hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Richard and this is Lap of the World, your home for road trips and racetracks. If that sounds interesting to you, don't forget to click the subscribe button down below. That's free to you, it helps me, and if you turn them on, it will let you get a notification anytime we upload another video like this, or once we are finally able to get back out into the world and check another track off of our list. Today, we are continuing our adventure of me attempting to narrate and relate all of my experiences and feelings about a track in the amount of time it takes me to drive a lap of that track. Last time we left off with the beautiful Barber Motorsports Park, and this time we begin, without any further ado, out on the range at High Plains Raceway in Colorado. I had big plans for High Plains Raceway when we moved to Colorado in 2014. Unfortunately, as life panned out, I actually only ended up making it out to the circuit once. That was partially on account of the NSX being down for maintenance a large part of my Colorado residency. Finally kind of getting things sorted out in time to make NSX Expo 2015 and then drive it back to Tennessee when we moved back to Tennessee in 2016. The time that I did visit High Plains, though, I did actually have a lot of fun. My wife and son came with me. We drove the relatively short hour and a half from where we lived. And yeah, I'd say it was an entertaining facility. I think the two things that stuck with me most were the steep learning curve of this track as far as just learning the layout and the turns relative to a lot of other tracks that I've been to. Probably the closest analog I can think of that probably a lot of people would be familiar with, on the West Coast at least, is Thunderhill. In Thunderhill, really, you're only looking at like two of the kind of blind over-the-crest elements that you see maybe a half a dozen of as you're watching this lap at High Plains. Just the nature of the blind elements means it takes a little bit longer. Probably took me 3 or 4 sessions to really get a feel for where the track went and getting comfortable with where I needed to place the car before the crest to make sure that I quote-unquote landed in the right place on track after the crest to keep the to maintain momentum in the proper line. I know some locals are probably laughing at me for that, but I will call it like I see it, and it's a little bit harder track to get oriented on if you haven't driven there before. The other thing that struck me was how exactly in the middle of nowhere it is. Now, that's not uncommon for tracks, especially in current times where sound noise complaints are the bane of any track's existence. But yeah, I guess it strikes you more given the surrounding terrain and the fact that you're probably a minimum of 10 miles from the nearest thing anybody might call civilization. So pack a lunch. Thermal Club was our track stop for NSX Expo 2015, and its name is apt. For 2 reasons. It is located in Thermal, California, and it is frickin' hot. I think on the days that we were there, we were dealing with something between 115 to 120 degree ambient temperatures, much higher than that on track. I was driving as well as instructing, so as you might imagine, my liquid input to output ratio was heavily skewed to the former. That's probably the biggest thing I remember there, is just how daggum hot it was. The track itself is neat. We were driving the South Palm circuit, as I don't think the rest of it had been completely finished at the point we were there, but it was a privilege to drive there because it's a very exclusive community. I think the normal buy-in to do laps there is something on the order of like $1.5 million for a house next to the track, but that is what it is. It's South Palm Circuit's also interesting in that it is fairly famous. It was probably most well known from Salamandrin's Hyper 5 series, but also more of interest to me, Roadshow did a piece comparing the old NSX to the new one and had Graham Rahal turn some laps in a basically stock 2005 NSX at the track, turning in a 1 and 34-second lap time, which I beat by a couple of seconds. Now, I'm not faster than Graham. I was actually on track tires and had an entire day to warm up, so maybe it means that I'm just not completely lost. One of the more unique events I've had the privilege of driving in these past few years has been running the newly anointed Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval configuration under the lights. in an event that started at 2 p.m., I believe, and runs until 9 or 10 p.m. in the evening after sunset. This is definitely a unique annual fixture on the J-Zilla Track Days calendar, one that I highly recommend. I will leave a link to them in the description below. They are a great track day outfit if you are interested. Almost all of their events have some kind of unique quirk to them. This is one that I drove in 2017. My wife and I, along with my best friend TJ and his wife, we made a weekend of it. We went over to the Charlotte area, found some nice place to have a pleasant dinner, and I think Concord nearby to the track. And then you get to sleep in because you only have to be at the track at noon to get through tech in time for the drivers' meeting at 1 or 2. When you would normally already have been baking for several hours in the sun during the southeastern summer months. So this is definitely one of the more cool and unique solutions to having a track day in the southeast in the midsummer when it can get really uncomfortable. Now, I know this word is probably a little overused on the internet these days, but the laps that you turn is that you have that transition from day to night in the late evening. It really are kind of magical. The colors all pop, the air cools down as it's coming in the car, and it's very serene and surreal at the same time when you're turning these laps and driving through that last banking, looking at the sun over the wall. But highly recommended. Definitely an event worth traveling for if you if you're in the region, or even if you're coming from out of the region. Definitely a bucket list here. The self-proclaimed National Park of Speed, Road America was our stop for the track event at NS Expo 2017 as we toured around the Kettle Moraine and Elkhart Lake and Milwaukee, I think, as well, areas as part of that social and track event conglomeration that is NS Expo every year. It is definitely, as their nickname implies, and I have no dispute with that claim to being a national park of speed, is it is very, very scenic. You can just sort of look at the panoramic view. You get out the window, off to the sides, which of course you're not paying much attention to as you're driving because the track is also very fast. But you really are like you're just blasting through the woods, on a country road that happens to be fully sanctioned and only circulates one direction, fortunately. I really enjoyed Road America. It's probably among my favorite tracks. It's also probably among the fastest tracks that I've driven from an overall lap speed standpoint. Road Atlanta is probably also in that conversation, but I think Road America holds the crown for me so far as fastest lap average speed. Even though I think we were using the configuration that uses the bend rather than the traditional kink that you'll see coming up here after the carousel. I think that was done in large part because within NS Expo you have a lot of folks that are novice drivers, and you want to keep people out of the wall. And the kink at Road America is kind of legendary for eating cars of the unwary or overambitious. So as much as I would love to go back and drive the track in its more renowned configuration, I don't begrudge anyone the probably intelligent change of course in this case. But the trip up to Road America and the surrounding area is also amazing. I think we were at the Osthoff Resort, although there's also the Siebkens Resort. Even though we're staying at the Osthoff, I think anytime you go to Road America, you're a little bit obligated to stop into the, now that I've said that, I'm going to say that twice now, to visit the Stop In Tavern attached to the Siebkens Resort, as it is kind of legendary for its ambiance and catering to the racing community for that matter. There's I think a famous painting. They have one up in the bathroom there called The Last Open Bar that features a lot of very well-known and famous drivers to have laid rubber on the circuit, and it's pretty cool to think as well, given its history, that it's never changed its configuration in its operation. So you're driving now what they were driving then. A fun romp through the North Georgia woods. Atlanta Motorsports Park is both one of the closest tracks to where I live, as well as one of the newer tracks in the region. That newness kind of comes through when you see all of the electronic warning boards and things like that that they've put around the course to make improve safety in the absence of always having good sight lines to corner stations, given the rolling nature of the track. It has quite a bit of extreme elevation change, or very abrupt elevation change, if not in overall magnitude. It's a fun track. It is like I said, it is a bit of a roller coaster. It's both fast in parts and technical in parts, and fast and technical in parts. So it's really it's a fun ride. Can definitely recommend it. I visited there with Performance Driving Experience a couple of years ago, and I think what I learned from the trip as far as travel logistics, I think the secret sauce is to see if you can sneak a room at the bed and breakfast that's literally across the street from the track entrance, to minimize your commute in the morning. And then if you are on site and do end up needing something, just remember that there is a Discovery Parts store, actual brick and mortar Discovery Parts location on site. I give Discovery Parts a little bit of a shout out there because they have been longtime supporters of motorsports in the Southeast. So, you support those who support you. But AMP, definitely a track I would recommend if you're in the region. Very, very fun and entertaining. Moving from one relatively new circuit to another, the Dominion Raceway and Entertainment Complex lies just a little ways north of Richmond, Virginia. An interesting facility comprised of a road course, as you might imagine, as well as a short oval track and a concert venue of all things. The road course itself, which is what we were there for, is it is far less sketchy to drive than it might initially appear, although you are definitely cognizant over the first quarter of a lap of all of the hard surfaces directly adjacent to the racing surface. In practice, it is far less intimidating and claustrophobic than I anticipated it would be when I was watching video to learn it before my visit, but it's kind of in the back of your mind that it's there. The rest of the course is relatively open and has a good mix of technical and quick elements, although your full-on race car might be a little bit out of its element with some of the turn radius here. One other thing I wanted to mention about the facility is it definitely punches above its weight from an infrastructure standpoint. For a road course this size, you're usually not expecting a lot, maybe a hamburger stand or something along those lines, but with this also having a circle track intended to accommodate thousands of people, or hundreds of people, I don't remember exactly how big it was, we'll say hundreds for now, and a concert venue, they have a very, very well-equipped concessions area, as well as air-conditioned classrooms and large gathering areas, and gift shops and whatnot else. So on the inside, it's a lot more well polished than what you might consider, given the relatively compact size of this facility. And that brings us to early 2018 with a quick but very fun day out at Dominion Raceway. That's where we're going to leave it for today. Next time we will pick it up with Hallett Motor Racing Circuit in Oklahoma. We visited there on our way to NS Expo 2018 as we drove the NSX from Tennessee out to San Francisco, stopping to drive an Audi R8 with extreme experience in Oklahoma so as to not have to unpack this car on our way out to California. So look forward to that. Again, if you click subscribe and the notification bell, you will get a notification when that video goes live. And in the meantime, don't forget, if you enjoyed it, to click like down below. That helps me out. And please leave a comment with your experiences at these tracks or any others. Support your local track addict by buying some of his merch, link in the description. And until next time, I'm Richard, this is Lap of the World, and we will see you guys in the next video, if not at the track.